Hey again everyone, and welcome back to the next video of the next car review, and I bring you another BMW. I introduce you the original M3, the E30 M3, the car with pinnacle of the performance and style for BMW fans around the world. One of the best BMWs of all time and every BMW's enthusiast's favorite. This is probably the kind of car you always loved drawing in the good old days when you once were a kid. Here's everything you need to know about this E30 M3 and why probably it is the best M car ever in the top 3. No matter how powerful the latest model and brand BMWs are, enthusiasts constantly compare it to its ancestor, the E30 M3. The E30 M3 was a true homologation sports car, primarily developed for motorsport purposes. BMW made the racing version of the street car and became an icon for every motorsport lover and the crown of BMW Motorsport. The Group A regulations required that at least 5,000 road legal copies of a racing car had to be sold within 12 months in order for a vehicle to be homologated for racing. This E30 M3 raced in the FIA Championship in the Group A for Rally in 1987. Although the M3 was mainly exclusively for track racing, it raced and participated in a class Group A for DTM Championship from 1987 to 1992. Also, the prestigious 24 Hours of Spa and the Nürburgring Nordschleife 24 Hour. The M3 rivaled against the 190e Evolution and Ford Sierra in 1987 through 89. BMW was almost present in all podiums at the races held during the years in the DTM standings. Then Audi came into play with the Quattro V8 in 1990 through 1991 to dominate the races, defeating BMW. But the thing is, this car was almost undefeatable in the championships. The E30 M3 also won 4 out of 6 consecutive races in Spa in 1987, 1988, 1990, and 1992. And the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring in 4 consecutive years from 1989 through 1992. The E30 M3 was a compact, strong, and sporty car and was famously popular from the mid-80s to the early 90s, and because the fact that it won in several championships and became one of the most successful cars in the history of BMW. The E30 M3 was the first ever M3 to have a 4-cylinder engine. Underneath the hood, you had this healthy, beautiful 2.3-liter naturally aspirated inline-4 motor, codenamed the S14 engine. A high-revving engine that can rev up to 7,100 RPM, while the Group A race car can produce up to 9,000 RPM. That is crazy. When BMW was developing an engine for this car, they was going to use the inline-6 engine from the BMW M1 race car from the 1970s at the development of this car. Instead, they used a 4-cylinder based on an F1 power plant with a high revving engine. So they was like, yeah, let's go with that because you get high revving RPM. The E30 M3 made about 195 horsepower and 170 pound-feet of torque and can go from 0 to 60 in just 6.5 seconds with a top speed of 142 miles per hour. Now, that doesn't sound that fast now in today's standard of BMWs, but this car weighed about 2,600 pounds, which is very light in comparison to modern BMW M3s that have more horsepower and 1,000 pounds more heavier than its original classic M3 from the 80s. The E30 M3 came out in Europe in 1986 for the 1987 model year and became available as a coupe or convertible. The E30 M3 went in production from 1986 to 1990 with a lot of variations. The E30 M3 came to North America in 1988. The variants of this car, first it was the original M3 that you're looking at, the M3 Evolution 1, the Evolution 2, the Rally Edition, and the Sport Evolution, which was the final version of the E30 M3 before moving on to the successor, the M3 E36 that was released in 1992. This particular M3 is very rare, and only 15,000 units were produced worldwide, and this car was the start of the global icon of the M3, and it is a very special car. The little engine that generates amp power and revs up that makes a unique engine noise. The design of this E30 is very simple and subtle. Essentially, the front kidney grille is cool and smaller than what BMW's M3s and M4s current that you will find today. Gosh, I despise the new grille of the current BMW M3s and M4s as of today. It just compromises the entire car design, and it makes the car look garbage, and most BMW fans will agree. To be honest, it looks even worse than the new Chevrolet Camaro's grille, and you simply can't deny that. The E30 M3 was equipped with box flare fenders and wider and taller wheels and racing rims supplied by BBS. The trunk sits 1.5 inches higher than the original E30 3 Series. The E30 M3's brake system was equipped with large discs and has ABS system. Also, this car had the raised rear deck and a mounted wing and has 2 exhaust pipes on the left. So, let's dive right into the interior of this E30 M3. This interior isn't really all that special. That's because it was mainly focused for driving performance on the road and on the track, and also because this car is from a different era. Everything is just analog in here. The inside included adjustable Recaro seats, and then you have this beautiful 5-speed manual with a stick shift. The stick shift feels soft when you use it because it is leather and includes the M stripes with the H pattern like you see in most M car BMWs. The parking brake is also leather. Behind the steering wheel is a gauge cluster with 160 miles per hour speedometer and an 8,000 RPM tachometer, and then the fuel life on the right. Below the gauge cluster, you can see that those 7 rectangular lights, that is the oil life indicator before we had screens. The center buttons in the middle are usable. It has radial buttons with air conditioning and climate controls, etc. And one thing to point out is that it has a clock with old buttons to set the time, and this car had a turn signal lever on the steering wheel. The BMW M3 E30 has 4 seats with average room in the back seats that can fit average adults, and all the seats are very bolstered to keep you in place in case if you're taking your friends in real life out on the racetrack. The practicality of the trunk space is surprisingly bigger and slightly more practical than the 1M series. You can fit a lot of stuff in here with 14.8 cubic feet of trunk space or 420 liters. You'd rather drive a daily car that has so many great memories with motorsport racing, with the high revving inline 4 engine, with the manual gearbox, and this car will draw a lot of attention on the road no matter where you are. All it takes is for people to see an M3 badge on a car visible on the back and in the front of the grille. The E30 M3 feels more connected to the road with sharp steering. It may not be as fast as most modern cars today, nor can match the modern technology and safety standards, because this car is from a different era. It didn't have airbags at all, and this car is lightweight combined with a stick shift and a turn signal. You are in a classic sports car that's made for a driver. Whether you want a classic car for the weekends or daily for commuting to work or school, the E30 is a great choice. You can find this car ranging from $40,000 to $60,000, which is surprisingly cheap. If you get a good example and keep up maintaining it, these cars can easily go past 250,000 miles on the original engine. If you want space, you can go for an M3 sedan that came out later on to now, or touring cars like the Grand Tourings. This E30 M3 is very relative to the 1M series, and both of these cars have timeless styling cues, and they both were ahead of its time. People arguably agree that this E30 M3 is the best M car is because not only the fact that it feels more connected to the road and it feels very easy to drive, but it had a lot of achievements in motorsports, and like too many to name of them. It's what makes this car very special. And the 1M series is special too, but this car, the 1M, was great for the road, while the E30 M3 was great for the road and on the track. And now, that was the end of the car review of the E30 M3. I hope you really do enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to feel free to give it a like, and I'll see you in the next video for some more car reviews. Also, if you like the 1M series and never seen that video, Feel free to click that video right now on the upper right screen for more information about it. Now before we do end this video, let's jump inside of this E30 M3 and put the keys into the ignition and start the engine. This car sounds amazing. Take a listen and adjust your headphones volume.